I've been wanting to talk about Melee 3.0 for a while, ever since in the latest dev stream we got a glimpse at the new system. And although I believe there are still many important aspects that we don't know, one thing is for sure, the success of this Melee 3.0 will ultimately depend on the details. So let's talk. I'm Deuce and thanks in advance for watching. For starters, I like the idea behind the new Melee system. When something is broken, you have to fix it. And Melee in Warframe is a broken mechanic. First and foremost, half of the system isn't used. That's channeling, with the exception of Lifestrike, which goes to prove why channeling needs a revamp. On the other hand, Melee builds are pretty much the same, either be for Blood Rush or Condition Overload, spin to win or not spin to win. There is no variety. Compare that to primary weapons. You have Hunter Munitions or a pure slash and viral, the Corrosive Hybrid, Eidolon one-shots, purely physical builds, which are an offshoot of the HM build, multi-status builds, just to mention a few. And yes, you can do some of these with Melee weapons as well, but the truth remains that this system is just too repetitive. Primary weapons have plenty of variety: snipers, shotguns, machine guns, lasers, explosive. Melee weapons on the other hand, yes, there is variety, but that only comes in looks, not in actual capabilities. At the end of the day, there are only two things that make melee weapons good or bad, and those are range and status. The rest is inconsequential, with a few exceptions that only exist because of stance mods that can boost damage or force slash procs, or both. Which again prove my point. You see, if something is the exception not the rule, then there is a case to be made about the rarity of such thing, and uniqueness in Melee is precisely that, an exception. Right off the bat, I don't think Melee 3.0 will address this particular situation, at least not from what I've seen thus far. In Warframe, Melee playstyles aren't determined by the weapon's capabilities, but by their stance mods. That flash of individuality comes in the way combos are executed, not in what the weapons actually do. The only differences between melee weapon subclasses boil down to stats, having a pretty similar behavior all across the board. This is something that the new system is not going to address. On the contrary, these weapons are going to feel pretty much the same no matter how different they look. This is the first detail that I believe needs to be understood. But if there's something that Melee 3.0 will do right, is to even the different levels of effort required to bring out the best in each weapon. And that is due to the standardization of the combo system. This in on itself is a dichotomy, since streamlining the way we execute combos will conspire towards making every melee weapon feel the same. But I think that this is a necessary sacrifice if we want every melee subclass to be viable, at least on paper. Right now, the difference between the amounts of effort required to make a weapon such as the Atarax work is significantly less than the one needed to make the Meows function to its fullest potential. Both have a very good range, good stats overall, and can be considered as viable within the game's meta. But what makes the Atarax substantially better is the fact that all you need to do is slap Maiming Strike and spin to win. On the other hand, the Meows requires careful button presses and knowing just how and when to use the different combos in his arsenal. The Atarax requires no thinking, while the Meows requires a ton, and this is bad since it encourages players to constantly take the easy way. Evening the playing field will make these two viable with the same amount of input, and that is a step forward. Having to press the same amount of buttons in order to make one or the other function at the same level is huge. Of course, this doesn't mean that said execution is going to look the same on screen, which is even better. Weapons will feel the same but won't look the same. Although the feeling part is a problem from a variety standpoint, it is, like I said earlier, a necessary sacrifice in order to make more weapons viable. Another thing that I definitely applaud from Melee 3.0 is the movement changes that will come with it. The short roll, the transitional attacks between static and moving combos, the directional slam, but more on that later, the ability to interrupt animations, the aerial combos, and the special bullet jump attack. One thing of note in this regard is the fact that DE is looking to provide more freedom of movement when you're wielding a melee weapon, tying combat actions to mobility. This can only be done currently with the slide attack, so having more movement options is only going to improve and encourage the overall usage of this system. The directional slam and bullet jump attacks especially will enable a much more natural playstyle by being able to get to enemies fast and precisely without having to stop the fight. But on the subject of directional slams, there is one big detail that worries me, and that's the expendable combo counter. You see, with this new system, the combo counter will only benefit heavy attacks, but using these attacks will also deplete said counter. The developers have said that in order to properly balance the loss of one of the most important aspects of the current melee system, the individual damage of each weapon will be increased. Now, this particular part has more than one player thinking about the ifs and buts, since we don't know of these damage increases yet. So in this regard, my worries are also conditioned by this fact. However, losing the combo counter will not only affect damage output, it will also affect status and critical chance due to weeping wounds and blood rush, as well as Warframe abilities that directly benefit from the combo counter. Combine this with the fact that in order to execute a directional slam, you need to use a heavy attack, and the result is that you are leaving players with a choice: either be mobile or break set flow in order to preserve the combo counter, at least in some situations. In this regard, I feel that the players will choose the latter, creating a similar case to what happens now with channeling and Warframe abilities, since both of these consume energy, hence why DE is also revamping channeling completely. But of course, this new problem is nowhere near as severe as the one channeling has at the moment. Details, that's the thing with Melee 3.0. The idea, the concept of this new system is good, making something that feels very much repetitive for the most part into something more open without overcomplicating it too much. Still, it all comes down to some very crucial points in order to determine whether or not it will be a success. The combo counter, the range, the rebalancing of the stats, and the ever-present question: will it feel like a nerf or not? This is, in my opinion, the fine print within Melee 3.0, one that we can't read, not yet. For my part, this has been all for now. If you enjoyed the video or you found it interesting, please consider giving it a like. Don't forget to subscribe for more Warframe content and follow me on Twitter to keep up to date with everything. Again, thank you very much for watching. Wherever you are, have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.